Is Java alone enough to get started in IT? So IT is typically networking, Linux administration, fixing printers. IT is kind of a broad topic, but IT does not include programming. You might do some scripting, you might do some PowerShell or some POSIX shell, but generally IT is you go around a building and you fix problems for individual users on the lower end, or on the upper end, you are architecting solutions for organizational issues, imaging machines, creating the plan possibly for how to deploy patches and security updates. So IT as a field is separate from programming as a field. And I don't recommend Java, but it just depends on what you are trying to do and what your goals are. Java is not the worst language out there. It's better than using something. It's more secure and fairly performant. So it's more secure than, say, C or C++ or Perl or that kind of thing. So, but I always recommend people should learn Go, and I think there's a future in Zig on the horizon. So we'll see where that takes us. But Rust, everybody loves Rust. Rust is really great, but I'm really excited to see where Zig takes us. JavaScript. Well, the problem with JavaScript is, how could I give someone, and until I develop a course for JavaScript, I can't recommend learning JavaScript, because there's no definition to what that is. Everything is JavaScript. Every hokey pokey language under the sun is JavaScript. There's too many transpilers. There's too many paradigms. There's as far as I can tell, there's no longer good resources that I could give to someone and say, here's how to get started with JavaScript and win. We had that back in the day with Douglas Crockford, but I guess people didn't like his personality and they threw the baby out with the bathwater. His personality was right, though. Anything IT is enough to get into IT. Maybe later you'll add more, but I don't see why you wouldn't. It wouldn't be enough to get started. If ADHD was a language, not a bad description. Points awarded to 2012 Honda Accord for great analogy. But it's the whole committee thing, and it's not just one committee. It's 7 committees. It's WG. It's JavaScript Foundation. It's which previously Node Foundation, previously CommonJS Foundation. Those kind of are semi-linear. CommonJS was kind of its own thing and kind of got absorbed into Node, but not really. Then you've got the W3C, and you've got TC39. So you have just about not quite a dozen different committees that none of whom are involved in each. I say this all the time. None of whom are involved in each other's work, all going in different directions all the time, all approving standards for all sorts of things. It's a madhouse. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. But I am working on AJ script. So let me just bring this back up real quick. AJ script. I've been thinking, I haven't written down anything yet, but I've been thinking about how to define the grammar. And I think the grammar is going to be very unique, because most grammars, I was talking about this earlier, they are not very specific. They're very, very broad in terms of expression. Expression is the catch-all in most programming grammars, where expression can be a number or a string or a function call or an accessor or a logical permutation of ands and ors. and so on and so on and so forth. So the expression just becomes the catch-all, which is essentially the entire language is expression. And then you define things like if expression and if expression expression. You know, so if expression expression. And I think that actually is one of the reasons that ifs have the parentheses, because you can fit an entire program in those parentheses. Because if is defined as if, open paren, expression, close paren. Whereas go, you don't need the parens because go doesn't allow expressions in an if statement. Go has a Boolean expression. And if can only precede a Boolean expression. Therefore, because the grammar of the language is larger and more specific, the language itself is smaller and more contained. And that's one of the tricks that I want to bring into AJScript. And Zig is the same way. Zig if expressions are essentially accessors. An if expression in Zig is not an expression. It is just, well, you can't do combinatorial expressions in an if in Zig. So you can't do if A and B and C. You can do if, I think you can do if greater than A, if A less than, stuff like that. But you are limited to only being able to do a direct Boolean expression, if I remember correctly, in Zig. You can't do combinatorial expressions. Now, Rust, yes. So Rust, you can do if let, which is kind of cool, or is it let if? If is part of the expression. I don't know the right terms, unfortunately, for describing languages, but there is statements versus expressions. Statements, I believe, do not have a return value. If I think that's so, usually an if is a statement, and an if statement can operate on expressions. In Rust, if is an expression, and an expression has a return value, so you can catch the value of an if expression in a variable in Rust.